Hi, welcome to Rajalnet. In this video, I am going to explain the description of business analysis because most of the people will complete their training on business analysis. Most of the people, or some people, have trained on BA, and they may be looking for better opportunities as a business analyst and all. Usually, right? So at the same time, some of the people whoever wants to transform their career from another profile to BA, even those people will also look for opportunities. But the major obstacle, as far as the research as well as the experience what I had interacted with more than thousands of people in these last 21 years, even in masses and as well as individually as I've interacted, especially in reference to the business analysis on that context. People have a confusion over what usually the responsibilities being a BA one has to perform and how they have to perform, because most of the people have a confusion over the job description from one to another. Because if you see, BA is a generic profile which is nothing to do with technology domain. Roles and responsibilities of a BA remains constant in any organization. But when it comes to the job profiles, when it comes to the job description, whatever they mention in reference to the job description of a particular organization depends on the kind of project as well as the domain they belongs to, followed by the kind of client whom we are dealing with. So there are some common responsibilities being a business analyst which are common, plus domain perspective or technical perspective, whatever the additional responsibilities being a business analyst has to offer, has to uh, uh, do as a job profile will be an additional thing. So most of the people have some confusion over how to identify the right profile for a BA. Okay, this is what usually most of the people have some confusion over. So based on the interaction I had, based on the consulting what I do, career consulting and all, as a part of my profile, for some people whoever wants all that, I understood that it is better to make a video so that people will understand what the roles and responsibilities of a BA and how we have to relate this to our profile. Because there are two differences, because I'm not generalizing this point. Actually, as I have observed that people will complete their training in BA, and whatever the profile or the resume they put or they prepare will be completely different. What they have learned, what was there in the resume, has a complete difference. So most of the people will fail in attending interviews. Most of the people were trying to understand the jargons, terminologies. At the same time, end of the day, which is leading to confusion over. Hence, in order to remove all that, I am trying to give some insights to the people so that it will be helpful to them to search what is the right business analyst job opportunity for them based on their these things. So before I'm getting into that, let me give you a clear explanation on two different things. Usually, business analyst on a high level note will be of two different types. One is regular BA and second is a functional BA, because technical BA and functional BA. Functional BA means working on the functionality side of the project, whatever the functionality related domain perspective. Either it could be investment banking, healthcare, payments, retailing, right? So all these things comes under the e-commerce. All these things comes under the functional part of it. So common responsibilities of a BA above followed by the knowledge areas, whatever they have learned so far remains constant. Apart from that, what else is required? So they need to have a knowledge over the particular functionality. So gaining functional experience or domain experience by any individual practically not possible, because domain is not something to learn in day or two or in a stipulated time. Because if you take investment banking, there are a lot of things like mergers and acquisitions, fraud detections, anti-money laundering, IPOs, right? So a lot of things are there. If you go for payments, there are different payments like SEPA, ISO 222, right? So different payment options and all everything are there. So one has to understand the common responsibilities of a BA, point number one. Second, about the functionalities of the BA. This is the first category. Second category, technical BA. Technical BA means business analyst responsibilities, again the same and constant. The knowledge areas, whatever you required, preparing BRDs or documentation, writing user stories, these are also quite common. Apart from that, they should have a knowledge on a respective technology. For example, business analyst in ServiceNow, right? So business analyst experience is required, but they need to have an hands-on experience somewhere relating to ServiceNow, which is relating to BA role. I'm not saying that complete ServiceNow is required. Maybe something relating to business analyst part. If at the same time MuleSoft, either it could be SAP and all, either it could be Oracle applications, right? So this is how generally this technical business analyst roles will be. So business analysis, what is that you are learning remains constant, and whatever the skill sets you must require remains constant, irrespective of whether you are choosing one domain or you are going for a technicality. But end of the day, that common skill set of BA remains same. But whatever the functional experience or technical knowledge may vary from the job profile to job profile, followed by the kind of resume what we have prepared, how we have prepared the resume. Because most of the people I have seen, I have come across personally, whatever they learned, whatever there in the CV or a resume is completely different. It's completely different. So they don't know anything about the jargons, terminologies of that, what was there in the CV. Unfortunately, because if this is the case, what is that you have to do? You need to get trained under based on the resume, which is not practically possible because there are a lot of things, lot of technologies are involved in it, lot of terminologies, lot of tools are required. So practically, learning all these may not be possible for them to have a detailed understanding. So it is always better to have a high level note over those things, at least to have some confidence over when they are going for an interview. That is the only thing they can do. So these are the practical difficulties out of my experience I have gone through when I am suggesting most of the people when they are preparing their CVs, all that. By keeping all these into account, I just I want to prepare a video on it. That's the reason why this video I'm making. Okay, let's get into the video by not taking more time. Okay, right. So this is what generally some job descriptions which I have taken. I'll explain from point to point so that you can understand this well in advance. The very first thing, being a business analyst, one need to understand the current client's business as well as business needs as well as the business requirements. This is something essentially important. Whatever the one which I have said, so this is something common. I'm just writing it as common. Okay. This is something common for any of the job profiles. This is nothing to do with any business analyst or something, right? So whoever the business analyst, this is quite common. Right? This point requires, which is mandatory for any job profiles, irrespective of the BA role we were playing on. Understanding about clients' business as well as business needs is something common. That is one thing. At the same time, we need to understand the potential change or transformation, or change or transformation knowledge is what usually organizations will understand, will try to understand this, right? So potential change or transformation is what they wants to know. Because as in when we know about the understanding and also this transformation is also required. This is also common point, okay? This point even common for most of the profiles I'm saying, right? So subject to maybe some deviation in few profiles, but most of the profiles says that. Next, this point even same, right? Gathering and identifying, documenting to prepare business requirements, because preparing business requirements is essentially important for any BA. So this is the common responsibility any business analyst must come across. So this is one of the common thing which being a BA one should have. Next, we should able in a position to create requirements document in a specific format. That is what generally these BRDs, SRS and all everything come into picture. So this is also even common, right? So because every organization will have their own templates. So based on the templates, what they have given and all in a specific format, based on the research what we have made, we need to prepare those things accordingly. That's what it is. Now, explaining about the technical jargons to non-technical commercial teams. That is what. So, for that, you need to have an idea over this. Being a business analyst, one should have a knowledge over the technical jargons, which are essentially important. If you know about these technical jargons, it is easy for people to understand. So, this is comes with understanding. This is comes with observation in most of the time. So, because I don't prefer that to learn each and everything in while you are working, because self-learning ability should also adopt by the people, which is essentially important, which I suggest to most of my students even. Of course, when and wherever it is needed, you can hire a trainer and you can get trained under them. Okay, absolute fine. But one should inculcate a ability of self-learning, which is always helpful for them to attain their professional growth in future. So this is what it is. The point was. Next, presenting creative solutions to the client needs and business needs. So this is also quite common part, which normally any BA has to be. Next, ability to grasp product knowledge quickly, both technically and functionally. This is what it is, because irrespective of the knowledge it belongs to, whatever the knowledge it has, whether it could be a functional knowledge or a technical knowledge, grasping product knowledge quickly is what is all about. This is what generally one must inculcate. This is what the habit one must inculcate. So that let me put it in the blue color. Right. This is something essential important for anyone. Right. This is comes with practice. Again, I'm saying this is nothing to do with training. Because if you attend this training and all, you don't get it. Because end of the day, what are the techniques to be considered to prepare these technicalities, functionalities? That is what usually we have to be good with. That is important, because not just by simply going and learning with the trainers like me or something like that. So it is nothing wrong in getting trained, but how many technologies will you learn and how many functionalities will you learn, practically speaking? That's not practically possible all the times. So the self-learning ability to grasp some knowledge over the technicalities and functionalities is essentially required for any BA. So that sort of techniques, there are a couple of techniques, of course, comes with practice. Those are all couple of techniques will be there. So those techniques you have to follow to understand these, any document, any functionality, any technicality, how to understand it and how to get knowledge over that. There are some techniques to be followed. So those are the techniques which are essentially required for people to inculcate, right? To explore themselves and all that. Next, understanding the product structure, whatever the product you are going to develop, and you need to understand the product structure. That is also something essentially required. Knowing about the structure of the product is required. Please do remember whatever the mentioning I'm mentioning on the blue lines is are something different. Red color or common things. Okay, that's what the difference I would like to show you here. So understanding the product structure of a product, whatever you are developing. At the same time, we should have an ability to propose customizations and enhancements in the existing product is also essentially required for any BA. Because this is where most of the people will have a confusion over, right? How to understand the product structure, how to propose customization and as well as enhancements, all that. So this is also one of the important element, because different products we develop in a BA in IT. It could be relating to retail operations, it could be relating to healthcare, investment banking, maybe payments or e-commerce, any of the products. How to customize and how to enhance, so that first of all you must know, you must have a knowledge over the product structure, how product structure will be designed. So that knowledge if you have, it is easy for you to move on to the next level to propose any customizations as well as enhancements and all everything here. Next, we should able in a position to map business processes with product features. This is required because product features are the one which are essentially required for any product. But end of the day, when this has an elevation, when you are mapping this to the business processes, then only it has. Otherwise, there is no value for that. So this is also one of the important element. Next is simplifying requirements and all. So this is the common point, which I am not explaining much on it. Next, knowledge over the business process modeling and improving business processes is required. So this is nothing to do with any domain. Any domain, knowing about business process modeling or improving business processes is required. I think I have made some video over business process modeling in my channel. If you want, you can go through that. I think there was some video I was mentioned it. You can go through that. Possible, I'll provide some link in the below to the description. Okay, that is one thing. Next, identifying the costs and business swaying through across industries, because this is where generally win-win situation, because any customer, whoever wants a solution to be provided, it must be a win-win situation to the customer also. So this is what the context was. At the same time, implementation, testing, deployment solutions for a business problem. This is knowledge, something additionally required for any BA when they are working on something, right? So this is what essentially required for any BA, wherein to have a knowledge over implementation, all that. So this is not something required for every project, because implementing, testing, and deployment solutions and all may not be required for all the profiles, but maybe for a few profiles it might be required, which is optional. Next, acting as an advisor to the senior management and executive team. This is something kind of liaising kind of role which you have to do being a BA. At the same time, ability to play a team role as well as IC role based on the business standards. Whatever the business standards do we have, so we need to play as a team role. So that is also essentially required for any BA, right? So we need to have that coordination among teams, right? So all that stuff is required here. Next, if I've taken some other job description, of course, I'm taking 2, 3, and I'm just comparing it so that you'll have a knowledge idea over this. Illustrating, analyzing, specifying, validating business stakeholders and customer. This is something common, right? So this is nothing to do with any technology or domain, which is common responsibility. At the same time, collaborate with project sponsors to determine the project scope and vision. It's important, because unless until if you have not identified the vision of the scope of the project, so then if there is any scope deviation happens in middle of the project, how you are going to attain this, how you are going to handle it, right? So understanding as well as determining the project scope and vision is essentially important. That you have to know when you are interacting with the project sponsors, you will be knowing it. Otherwise, you don't know. You never know that. So that is also a common skill set being a BA one has to acquire. Next, clearly identify the project stakeholders and establish customer classes as well as the characteristics. This is also essentially required, because identifying who are our project stakeholders, what kind of project stakeholders are they, either it could be internal stakeholders or external stakeholders. To identify them, what kind of technique like power and interest do we require to use, all these things has to be done here. This is what it is. Next, conducting some interviews, gathering customer requirements via workshops and all, because we need to conduct some JAT sessions. I think people who are getting trained under BA know that conducting some workshops, something like JAT sessions will be conducted as a part of requirements understanding. Or else we can interview some people, preparing some questionnaire surveys and all, everything is also one of the things. Storyboards, use cases, scenarios, all that. These are the different ways of understanding the requirements from different stakeholders, because all the stakeholders are not in a state of reachability to you. It varies. So that is where we have to understand this well in advance. At the same time, we need to identify and establish scope and parameters of the requirement analysis. Based upon the project to project basis, we have to understand. So this is also one of the common responsibility being a BA one has to understand here. Identifying and establishing the scope of the project is essentially required. At the same time, we must be knowing about the parameters of the requirements. At the same time, project to project and all. Establishing a scope. For that, let me show you one diagram, so that one slide of mine, so that you will be having an idea over this. This is what generally the scope of the project is all about, right? If you want to define the scope of the project, so these are the points you need to do it. First, you need to identify the project deliverables. Next, you need to identify the available resources. Either it could be manpower or technical. Inclusion circulations, policy constraints, all these things you have to collect in the first stage. Second, you need to build a project schedule where you need to identify the tasks as well as the milestones you want to achieve. Followed by this, what are the project phases is required for you. Next, we need to tailor the scope of the project as well as the organization. Based on the first 3 steps, what we have researched so far, we need to compile and review, where we have to understand, is it clear why this project is necessary and important for us, is what is required. So do I know who exactly the project stakeholders are? That's what we have discussed some time back in my explanation few minutes back. Will my stakeholders see a value and benefit in the project? Because that must be a value addition to the stakeholder. That's what they have to recognize even. Next, whether do we have sufficient resource requirements do we have or not? Do we have realistic timelines? At the same time, does our team has a necessary access to access all the resource information? Because due to different security constraints, all that, some information may not be possible for a team to identify. So that is also important. At the same time, we need to list the inclusions and exclusions which are specific enough. Followed by this, is there any possibility for us to add new requirements in future? Or is there anything that we have left so far to taken as a project task or something? Is that this is what comes under something completely under compile and review. So once we have done the compile and review, we put all this in the project scope of work. So identifying the scope of the project is essentially important. So which any business analyst must be good with. So this is where generally we need to understand and establish scope, right? So at the same time, parameters and requirement analysis, how to analyze the requirements. Either it could be business requirements, stakeholder requirements, transitional, regulatory, operational, all that. Based on the project to project, these requirements will vary, right? At the same time, we need to define the project impact, how it is getting impacted, and what is the outcome of the criteria, and what kind of metrics do we require to follow. All these things has to be understood here. These are all the business analyst responsibilities which you have to be focused on. At the same time, working with stakeholders and project team to collect the requirements. This is also one of the common point. Next, research reviews and analyzing effective ways of existing requirements gathering. So this is also a common point anyone has to focus more on, because research and as well as reviewing about the existing processes, existing requirements, what we have gathered and understood. So that sort of knowledge over being a BA you need to be good with. At the same time, assisting in conducting research on the products to meet agreed upon requirements. So this is something not required for every project. So it depends on the project to project. If there is any kind of something kind of research is required for that particular product and all, this is where being a BA you'll be allotted. Next, participating in QA for purchase solutions and all. This is, I can say, this is sometimes nowadays it is becoming common. Knowing a knowledge over the QA, quality analysis knowledge. I'm saying, right? I'm not saying expertise. Knowledge over this, it's becoming mandatory slowly, because depends on the requirements as well as the organization needs. So that I'm mentioning it on the red color, right? So next, participating in selecting any requirements documents software solutions, which is something common here. This is also coming under common point. Next, analyzing and verifying requirements completeness consistency. This is also one of the common point which can be, because doing some feasibility like technical feasibility, operational feasibility, regulatory feasibility, all that. At the same time, developing and utilize standard templates, because organizations will have these standard templates and all. This is also one of the common point. Next, these translate conceptual customer requirement into functional requirements, because whatever the functional solution you have identified, business solution, I can say, that you have to translate it into a document format by developing some functional and non-functional requirements, so that development team can develop the application accordingly. So this is also required. At the same time, creating process model specifications and all. This is where generally visualization come into picture. Preparing some UML diagrams, flow charts, at the same time business process diagrams, maybe like wireframes, mockups, because to visualize some requirements so that developer team can understand it well in advance. This is what generally one of the point here. Next, develop and conduct peer business requirements to ensure. This is also a common point. Of course, I'm just mentioning because reading all these doesn't have much value, because the highlighted points I have to explain. That's what my intention behind this video to prepare with. Okay, not to read everything. Okay, whatever is needed, I'll write. Next, assisting with interpretation of customer requirements and feasible options. This is also one of the common point. Next, managing the tracks and status of the requirements through project life cycle and enforcing and redefining as a necessary. This is also one of the common thing being a BA you need to have. Next, communicate changes and all everything by preparing some documentations of business requirement. This is also one of the common point. So these are the common points, and middle of that, I have given something on the blue color, which are depends on the requirement to requirement of that organization, that will vary. Now I have taken one more this thing. Here you can see like providing guidance or instruction to the staff members. This is one of the common thing for any BA to understand. Next, obtain and use business knowledge to identify most valuing, identifying and translating business accounts need to epic user stories and all. So how to write user stories and epics is what nowadays being a BA you need to do, because in the traditional way of model, we prepare BRDs, SRS, all that, business functional requirements, all that. But when you are following agile practices and all, in spite of it, we need to write epics user stories on. So of course, how to write is user stories and following the English technique, all that I was mentioned in my job, in my some of my videos in my channel. Possible, I'll give link also. Or else you can go through the video, you can go through my channel, you'll be identifying something. I think in the beginning of my days, I have given this user stories, detailed description about invest part, all that stuff. Okay, this is all about. Next, at the same time, helping the development team to deliver account solutions so that the business will enable. So this is also one of the common agile principles, because these are all something relating to the agile principles and value systems. Because what exactly agile is all about, what are the values and systems as well as principles, 12 principles of agile. So that sort of knowledge is required. Next, facilitating workshops with stakeholders, agile ceremonies and relevant activities. This is something I can say a combination of JAD sessions here by facilitating workshops like JAD workshops, all that. At the same time, we can connect with the Scrum ceremonies, like Scrum ceremonies with relevant stakeholders like sprint planning, review, retrospections, daily Scrum, sprint review, retrospections. All this comes under this category. This is all something connecting to this. Next, driving stakeholder management with across legal and business frontline areas, which is common thing. Next, closing sparing the product owner strategic. So this is also something common, especially in reference to the agile environment I'm talking about. Next, key competencies, something like agile mindset. You have to inculcate a mindset of agile. So being a business analyst, that is something essentially required. If you are working on agile mindset and all, this is what generally you must be. At the same time, understanding about the kind of different accounts and as well as financial institution related things are essentially required. So this depends on the organization to organization, the kind of client to client and all, what sort of accounts aspects and all our financial institution understanding is required. So it differs from country to country, because here in reference to this, here European accounts is what is given. Either it may be, if it is not European account, it may be Asian accounts also. So it will varies, right? So this is something unique, depends on the requirement specific to this. As a BA, as I told you, even additional responsibilities, this is how these are the points which are comes under the additional responsibilities on that. So these are all the add-ons which is specific according to the profile of a particular thing. This is all something relating to that. Next, stakeholder involvement and management skills. This is also one of the common points, so that is much more important. Next, developing a test strategy, and this is where generally we need to interact with the testing team by developing a test strategy. This is also required. Next, ability to approach existing solutions and problems and all. This is also common. Next, challenges to bring the continuous improvement of the performance. This is a common statement. Okay, this is not something specified to a BA or something. It's a common statement. Work towards achieving goals and objectives, which is a common statement, of course. With being a licensed person, we have to do that. Solid understanding over the data fields and required analysis. This is something relating to the kind of profiles where data is related. Some kind of data is related profiles and all. There you need to have this understanding over the data. Otherwise, being a BA, you are not directly involving in data, knowing about the data and all, because you will be lined majorly into business requirements, all that. Next, has an innate operation be aware how to contribute large vision of the banks. So this is all something, these are all something unique, something relating to that particular profile, whatever the profile they requires, client requires on that. These are all something specific to the requirements. Next, key success matrix. If there is any kind of analytical tools experience, either it could be Python or R programming or something like, maybe it may be required for something. At the same time, developing business case and data analyzation is also required, because data is not, but business case, understanding the business case is essentially required and important. So this is how generally one has to understand the job description of a BA. So based on that, how is it is different and how it is important and how it is relevant to our resume. So based on that, what kind of necessary changes to be made, because there are some common points. You have to understand what are all the common points which are for a BA among all the profiles. Those common points we have to address it first. First, we have to address when you are preparing a CV or when you are preparing a resume, because there are some common points. If you can see closely, I have taken 3 profiles. There were some common points you can see. Maybe the presentation of the doc write-up may be different, but end of the day, common point underlinedly is the same. So common points we have to mention as a BA for sure when you are preparing a CV. Next, after that, we need to see from the context of the expertise of domain or technicalities, what you have or what you are mentioning in your profile. Based on that, that changes and all everything can be varied upon. So this is how we have to understand the job requirements of a business analyst, irrespective of technology, the domain it belongs to. At the same time, this is how, based on it, how we have to change our resume and how effective it should be. Because resume is a phase of yourself, right? Without knowing you, people see your resume first. After that, when they're asking for to call for an interview. So resume must be so effective. How to prepare an effective resume is essentially important. Please don't mind, sorry to say that, please don't try to copy and paste, because of course, but even still, if you are taking some influences on something like, but my kind of advice is to try to understand and write in your own way. It may take time for you, right? Because this is my kind of advice. Sorry if I can hurt anyone. But this is my kind advice to all the people, all of you guys. Please don't try to copy it. Try to understand an essence of it and try to write it. It may be taking 2-3 days more time, right? So because you have to give value for your resume, first of all, because that is your CV, that is your phase when we are going to the organizations for a job, all that. So please give respect to that and try to prepare, try to do it for yourself first. You may be wrong sometimes initially to start with, right? Over a period of time, 2-3 times if you do, you'll get adjusted, you'll have a knowledge over that, so that whatever the best profile depends on your understanding, your expertise and all everything, you can incorporate. So that, because I have seen, because even I am also an interview panel, sometimes, usually I go when and wherever it is required, needed and all that. I have seen, because I have seen some people, sorry to say that, whatever is there in the profile and what they speaks is different, because this is due to ignorance. I don't say that this is by intention, but due to ignorance people do that, right? So that sort of things are not advisable for being professionals. We should not do that. So my kind of advice, put some time on your CV, get some proper suggestion, put some time on your CV, prepare it well, and compare what is that you require and what is there in the CV, right? Maybe some 10-20% there may be a deviation is acceptable, but 80% of deviation will not give you any this thing. So this is what my professional advice to the people who wants to transform their careers and who wants to apply for BA jobs, all that. I hope this video has helped you to attain a good career in BA. If you have any queries, you please reach out to the contact details which will be posted in below to this video. Thank you.